All right, so today we're going to get into one of the biggest questions when it comes to our health. How does our body actually get its energy? And we're going to tackle this by looking at our body's two amazing fuel systems from three totally different angles. We've got a wild, year-long experiment from the 1920s, a really interesting evolutionary theory from a Reddit forum, and a cutting-edge strategy from a modern wellness expert.
But let's start with a question. Really think about it. Could you eat nothing but meat for a full 365 days? Sounds kind of nuts, right? Maybe even impossible. Well, believe it or not, someone actually did it almost 100 years ago. And what he found out really challenges a lot of what we think we know about food and fuel. Okay, so to get our heads around this, let's use a simple analogy. Just think of your body as a really advanced hybrid car. It doesn't just run on one type of fuel, it actually has two separate engines, and it can switch between them depending on what you put in the tank.
So let's look at these two engines. First up, you got your main engine. This is the glucose system. It runs on sugar and carbs. Stuff like bread, pasta, and fruit. This is your body's go-to, its default mode for quick and easy energy. But then, you have this incredible backup engine. This one runs on ketones, which your body makes from fat when carbs aren't around. This is what lets you burn your own body fat for fuel. Understanding how to switch between these two is the key to, well, everything we're talking about today.
Now let's jump in our time machine and go back to 1928 to an experiment that basically pushed that fat-burning engine to its absolute limit. This is where things get really wild. It's the story of a man who decided to run his body exclusively on that backup generator for a whole year.
So the man's name was Vilhjalmur Stefansson, and he was this famous Arctic explorer. Now, this wasn't just some random idea he had. See, he'd lived with the Inuit way back in 1906 and saw they thrived on a diet of mostly meat and fat. So in 1928, he brought this idea to New York City to prove a point to all the skeptical doctors. And get this, he basically lived this way for the rest of his life.
And this was his big question, the one he put to the test. He wanted to see, under strict medical supervision, if he could validate what he'd seen in the Arctic, that humans could be perfectly healthy on a diet that, at the time, everyone thought was basically a death sentence. So he literally checked himself into a hospital so they could watch his every move, ready to prove them all wrong.
And here's the kicker. It wasn't just about eating meat. It was all about the fat. The traditional Inuit diet he was modeling got a whopping 70 to 80% of its calories from fat. Stefansson noticed they would actually prize the fatty parts of the animal and often just feed the leaner stuff to their dogs.
So what did a year-long all-meat diet actually look like? Well, it was pretty simple, really. Stuff like steak, roast beef, but also organ meats like brains and tongue, with some calf liver thrown in. But the most important rule of all, the one he stuck to, was that he ate the fat right along with the lean meat. He was mimicking that whole animal approach.
And this is where we get to the main discovery, the real aha moment of the whole thing. The only time Stefansson felt sick during the entire experiment was when the doctors, trying to prove a point, insisted he eat only lean meat. He started feeling awful. So what was the fix? Just one meal of fatty steak and brains cooked in bacon fat. And boom, his symptoms were gone almost instantly. He proved it. The fat was absolutely essential.
Okay, so Stefansson proved our fat-burning engine is no joke. It's incredibly powerful. But that just opens up an even bigger question, right? Is that how we're actually supposed to live all the time? Well, a really fascinating discussion on Reddit started digging into this from a completely different, evolutionary angle.
This really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Just because you can run that hybrid car on its backup motor for a year straight, does that mean you should? Or is there a deeper reason we have two systems to begin with? This is the exact puzzle that a user on the keto subreddit started to piece together.
And this user just framed the question perfectly. They basically said, look, if one way of eating, like ketosis, is supposedly the best way, why would evolution even bother keeping the carb-burning system around? Why are our bodies so quick to switch back to burning sugar the second we eat a piece of fruit? There's gotta be a reason for having both, right?
And the theory they came up with is actually super elegant. It's often called the seasonal hypothesis. Think about it. During the summer, when fruits and plants were everywhere, our ancestors would run on that glucose engine, storing any extra energy as body fat. But then in the winter, when all those carbs vanished, the body would just seamlessly switch over to the ketone engine, burning all that stored fat to survive. So the idea is, we didn't evolve to pick one engine, we evolved to cycle between them.
And this whole idea leads us straight to this really important concept in health today, metabolic flexibility.
It's not about being in one state or the other forever, it's about how good your body is at switching back and forth between the two engines. In fact, many experts now believe that your ability to switch efficiently is one of the biggest markers of good health.
So, okay, if this metabolic flexibility is the goal, how do we actually get there in our modern world where food is always available? Well, that brings us to our third and final perspective, which is all about mastering the art of the switch itself.
This is where Dr. Mindy Pelz comes in. In her book, Fast Like a Girl, she argues that we can use fasting as a powerful tool. Not to live in a fasted state forever, but to intentionally force our body to make that switch from the glucose engine to the ketone engine. It's like taking your metabolism to the gym to train that switching muscle. And what's so interesting about this approach is how precise it is. Dr. Pelz lays out different fasting windows for different goals. A short 12-hour fast might just give you an energy boost. Go a little longer, say 17 hours, and you can trigger something called autophagy, which is like a deep clean for your cells. Longer still, and you can focus on resetting your gut or targeting stubborn body fat. It's all about using the body's off switch to turn on specific health benefits. Okay, let's pause for a second and connect the dots. We've looked at a guy who ate only meat for a year, an evolutionary theory about why we eat what we do, and a modern fasting strategy. They seem completely different on the surface, but they are all pointing to the exact same powerful mechanism in our bodies. So when you lay it all out like this, a really clear picture starts to form. Stephenson proved that our fat-burning engine is incredibly robust and we can survive on it. The Reddit theory suggests that maybe we're not designed to just use one engine, but to cycle between them naturally. And then Dr. Pelz comes in with a modern toolkit that lets us intentionally control that cycle for our health.
So the big takeaway here is this. Maybe, just maybe, this endless, confusing search for the one perfect diet is asking the wrong question. Perhaps the real secret to all of this isn't about choosing the glucose engine or the ketone engine forever. Maybe it's about becoming a master driver who knows exactly how and when to use both.
And that leaves us with one final thought, a different kind of question to ask ourselves. Instead of getting bogged down in which diet camp is right, maybe a more powerful question is, what fuel does my body need right now for what I want to accomplish today? Because once you understand your two engines, you have the power to answer that question for yourself.